Hi, it's Adam from Krav Maga Northern Beaches here, and I'm here with Monique Dahl. She's a client of ours, and her children are in the Warriors program. She's also a developmental psychologist. She's been coaching parents and children for over 20 years, and she's the author of this book here, No Limit Parenting, Do What You Love and Inspire Your Children. Hey Monique, how are you?
Hey Adam, thank you for introducing me, and it's a pleasure and honor to share some important tips with your viewers these upcoming 6 videos, because we will be sharing tips about parenting and coaching and personal development, and those are things that most of our children don't learn at school, while they're very important for them to create happy and fulfilling lives, and that's what we all want for our children.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the videos.
Me too.
Thank you. Hi, it's Adam from Krav Maga Northern Beaches, and this tip that we're going through is all about communication, which is really important for any parent or anyone that is conversing with someone, especially with little kids, because they speak a different language sometimes, I find. Hey Monique, how are you?
Hi Adam, I'm fine, thank you.
Good. So yeah, I just wanted to see, why is it so important that we improve our communication skills with kids?
Actually in general, communication skills are the most important skills for a child to learn, because as I said earlier, we are social beings, and actually communication is relation. So the quality of our communication determines the quality of the relationships we can establish with our children, with colleagues, with our spouse, with friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really a very important skill to develop.
Yeah. So what are some things that are ways for effective communications within families?
Yes, well, I have, myself, I really love the framework that Thomas Gordon offered. He was an American psychologist, and he had his family practice. It was back in the 60s. And there was like a transitioning in parenting from a very authoritative, how do you say that? Authority way of parenting to a more a parenting style based more on open equality, and he finds a lot of parents finding it difficult to find a balance between that. So he came up with a framework that we know now as the Gordon method, and he developed a lot of training around that. He did some very practical tools, but most important for him was to have a different perspective, like from a perspective of equality and acceptance. So his method is also called the language of acceptance. And it's about communicating without using or misusing the power, because that's a pitfall that we as parents often fall into, because we just want to say, do this or otherwise this will happen. So that's kind of threatening and using the power that we naturally have.
It's funny because I find that, it's so natural for parents, and, we've been raised in this way where it's always a threat. It's like, if you don't do this, you won't get that. You have to do A to do B. And from what you're sort of saying, that this method of communication is not, what impact would that have on a child? And then what are some other more effective ways to communicate, according to what Gordon says?
The way you communicate, as I said, it impacts the relationship you're building long-term with your child. And you can imagine if you use the power that you have a lot in the way of communicating, the child will always feel like it's losing in the conflicts or challenging situations that you have as a family. So Gordon is always more encouraging to find win-win solutions. And he says always in his books, the child is important, and the needs and the feelings of the child are important, but also your needs as a parent or as an adult are also important, and the relationship is important. So if you're looking for a solution, the challenge is to find a solution that honors the child, that honors your own needs, but also helps the relationship to grow. And if you use a lot of power in the way of communication, then the child will build up resentment, for instance, and those reactions. Some children will fight back because they feel it's like a fight. They need to win, so they will fight back. And you have children who shut down. I always lose, so I don't even try anymore. and that's not what you want.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I see both. I see both in, like in our martial arts clubs, you see children that are very submissive and they'll do what they want, and then you'll have the others that will be doing something else, and you're like, that's not what I said. And then the reality is we attempt to sort of push it down more.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes children like this, in the schooling system sort of get in that trap of, being on detention and, they're trying to express a different way and they're frustrated often and getting in trouble, and it's just a different way that we need to communicate more effectively. When you talked about perception of children, because sometimes I have to often think to myself, this child is 4 years old, this child is 7 years old. Because I think sometimes what happens is for adults is we sort of get caught up in adult world.
Yeah.
And we have expectations sometimes on children that are adult expectations.
Yeah.
Talk about how you can change your perception with children and how that affects communication.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that you bring up, because in communication it is important to adjust to the age of the child. And so, for instance, with teenagers, you can have more in-depth conversations about why they need to do something or why they're not allowed to do something. You can have conversations, and those conversations are more about values, because if you just force your child into certain behavior or just say that you're not allowed to do that, the child in short term, it will just listen to you, because again, you have that power as a parent to make the final decision. But what you actually want is that they incorporate those values themselves, and from there make conscious decisions in life, and make the right choice. With younger children, it's not always possible to have these in-depth conversations, but you can adjust it to their level. So something I did a lot when my children were younger is to present the problem as a choice.
Yeah.
So if you say you can do that, instead you can say we can do this, but then we cannot do that. What do you choose? And that is that you give the child more ownership and the feeling he's involved in the final decision.
So it's like you're empowering them.
Yeah, it's more empowering.
So it's sort of like, for instance, it could be, like if we're going out the door and, my daughter wanted to play or do something, or I want to stay longer at someone's house, or, I want to do you're sort of presenting, well, we can do that. However, it's going to impact, us doing this later, and empowering them to help make that decision-making process.
Yeah.
So they're aware of the consequences.
Exactly. Or sometimes it's always also a conflict of needs. So your child want to do something, but you had other plans, or you want to do something else. And then you can bring that up as a problem. Like, I think we have a problem. You want to do that, but I was planning to do this. Yep. How can we come to a solution? And you will be amazed, even young children, how creative they are in thinking, we can do first this and then that, or this time we do this and then next time we'll do that. So they come up with solutions themselves, which is empowering. Giving them a choice and involving them in the decision making, that's actually something you can do from a very early age. Oftentimes I get questions from parents. They say, but I have little children, so I just decide. But even if a child is 2 years old, it will feel like I'm losing all the time.
Because getting them involved, I think, when we're talking about confidence and those other topics, is with this communication is a big part of the confidence. If you can get them involved in empowering them, to be aware of their consequences, or, your choice is going to have this impact, is going to really build their confidence, that they're feeling empowered. What happens if, and you might get this a little bit with, more so older children, and, I value one thing, whether it be, health related, or I don't want them to do something. I can see that what they're doing is not empowering, or, the environment that they're in is not empowering, whether it be, a primary school student or a teenager, and it's like, I don't want you to do that. And it's like, the answer is no. Like, I'm putting my foot down, because if you keep going down this track, this is where I can see you're going. But then sometimes they can't see.
No.
Obviously,
and sometimes you need to take the role of the leader and say, always explain why you make a certain decision. And sometimes they won't see it at that moment, but they will see it later. But as long as you keep talking and say, it's from a place of love that I make this decision because I care about you, that will be, that has to be the atmosphere. And if you come to the point that you say, I just make this decision. But always explain why you make that choice.
Yes.
But it's
opposed
also
to just saying you're not going there.
Yeah.
Because then obviously
Because
has
I
that-
say it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has that more
My father
resentment.
always said, because I say so.
Yeah, that's right. I used to get that as well.
No explanation. And
Yeah.
it felt so frustrating for me. But this requires that you look at the whole parenting process that you come from a space of trust and faith in your children. Because if you never give them a chance to make this choice or to experiment. For instance, you don't want your teenager that starts smoking. If you just say don't smoke, what will happen? They will do it behind your back.
Yes.
So it's more about, okay, here's a cigarette, try it out and have the conversation on why you don't like your child to start smoking. And then it will be in a more open environment. You keep on having this conversation, be a role model, so don't smoke yourself, because I see sometimes parents say no to something for their child, what they're doing themselves. But then you give the child the chance to come to the conclusion, oh, actually, this is not, I don't like it, or I feel it's not good for my health, and make that decision for themselves.
If someone said no to me when I was a teenager, I'd do the opposite. That was me.
And that's often times
kids,
the
especially
case.
Teenagers do.
Yeah.
You know, if they can't do it, they want to do it.
Yeah.
So
you make it actually more exciting to discover. Yeah.
Especially for teenagers, definitely. Okay, great. So let's wrap it up. And what are 3 tips that we can have for, parents or teachers at home for having effective communication with families or others?
Yeah. Well, the first tip, as usual, be a good example. And that is by communicating. It's not only about strategies, but it's also about communicating from the heart. So bring in that love and affection that you have for your children, and try always to communicate from that perspective. But because a lot of our communication with children is from a place of fear, and we're just talking to the child instead of having a conversation about their thoughts, their feelings, their experience of the world. Yeah, I read in a recent research that in America, parents have, I think 10% of the parents have these kind of conversations with their children, and it's not that we're not talking to them, but we're not really talking with them. So that is one tip. Another tip is to be very aware of your words, the words that you use.
Okay.
Actually, to an extent, the words that you use create your reality.
Yeah.
So that's also in communicating with your children. If you always say you're never going to make it, it's not going to work, you are not old enough to try this, or you're always so messy, these things, or you can't do this, or
do that.
It will become the reality, and that's something to be aware of. A beautiful book about this topic is called Conscious Language, and it gives a lot of tools and techniques on how to use more empowering language, like I choose, I can, I am. Those kind of statements are very powerful, and it's also nice to mirror your children how you can use your language to create your reality. So that's a really beautiful book. And also what's empowering, instead of, for instance, your child want to buy something. Oh, I want to have this. That's very relatable for all parents, I think. And then a lot of the times we said we don't have the money.
Yeah, money doesn't grow trees.
Yeah. And more empowering is, okay, great, you want to do this. I also like it, but how can we create money?
Yes.
To buy this.
Empowering.
Yeah, or if you say, I want to go there, it's not possible. You want to go there? How can we create a solution that this can happen?
Sometimes it's just a conflict of values. It's like, I don't want to spend $50 on this because you've already got more at home.
Yeah.
They do obviously want to have as many as they want.
Yeah. But if you empower them, say, okay, how can you create it? It also triggers the creativity, which you talked.
No, it's funny
earlier.
because I got my little boy. He loves Ninja Turtles, of course. He's 4 years old and going on to 4. And I said, okay, well, it's the same thing. How can we do that? And obviously I had to coach him. Yeah. But he started doing a few little chores, and he raised $4, and he's like, I want it now. And I was like, it was a great educational tool to actually tie in mathematics as well, saying, well, the Donatello one cost $12, we've got 4. Yeah. How many more do we need?
That's great.
And then you also can value, a little bit of hard work and long-term sort of working towards something, opposed to just having that instant
satisfaction.
satisfaction. Yeah.
That's so great. I remember, I think it's 2 years ago, my children wanted to have a new, how was it called, that you can play games on the
Like
television.
Xbox,
Yeah, something like that. And I said, well, I'm really not going to buy this, but if you want to, the three of you can come up with a plan to raise the money. And we were out on a Saturday, my husband and I, for the whole day. And then my oldest son sent a picture, like, this is what we're doing right now. And they just put a table outside our house, lemonade, $1. And my youngest was sitting there and selling the lemonade. And in, I think, 2 or 3 weekends, they had this thing. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's also more satisfying for them that they really worked for something and that they could achieve something on their own.
Yeah.
And a last tip that I wanted to share was the book, as I said, of Thomas Gordon. He wrote several books, and he gives really some practical tools about active listening, for instance. And that is not listening only to the words that your child is telling you, but also be sensitive about the underlying emotions. And actually, in your response, react more to the emotional level than to the actual words that they're using. And he explains that wonderfully in that book, how you can practice that active listening. Because listening within the communication skills, listening is, I think, the most important. And sometimes we want to make our point so badly to understand me. But it always works better when you first try to understand and then try to be understood.
Yes, to understand what they want. And I think it's a nice point. The communication it's not always the words, like sometimes someone will say yes, but they really mean no, and you can tell by their body language that they're feeling sad, or there's an underlying message there. And I think it's having that intuition or those skills to sort of zone in on that will definitely help how you communicate with them and be on the same page.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for today. As we know,
You're welcome.
No Limit Parenting, do what you love, inspire your children. Great book. And you've also got an online coaching program?
Yes, actually in my program, in this book and in the program, we go through the 6 steps that we also discussed in this 6 video series. So that's the framework from which we go in depth in all those topics.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you can check it out. Thanks for today. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.